The air and water flowing hard, the land we call our home. Push to keep the dark from coming. Feel the weight of what we owe. This, the song of sons and daughters. Hide the heart of who we are. Making peace to build a future. Strong, united, working till we fall. The air and water flowing hard. The land we call our home. Push to keep the dark from coming. Feel the weight of what we owe. This, a song of sons and daughters. Hide the heart of who we are. Making peace to build a future. Strong, united, working till we fall. And we all lift. And we're all adrift together. Through the cold mist, till we're lifeless together.
Well, 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 what have we here? Welcome, everybody, to the second volume of Fictional Convocation. This is the stream series that I launched where I'm going to be talking about the fiction, the video games, novels, fantasy settings, science fiction, and the things that I think are interesting and valuable. That intro is several years old now, but it is a wonderful song created by the developers of Warframe at Digital Extreme. And we're going to be talking about Warframe today. Warframe is an interesting, unique game that isn't like anything else. And I've been in it since only about a year after it came out, maybe 9 years ago, 8 years ago. I really got into it between 6 and 7 years ago heavily. But I piddled around with it the first couple of years it was out. It was interesting, but then they changed it a lot, and it really started becoming something unique, something amazing. And today, I have one of my best friends with me, Ginger, whom you guys know has been on my channel many times. He is a Warframe aficionado, such as myself. And my co-host 3 of 12 actually likes Warframe and has played it on and off quite a bit. He's not as into it as Ginger and I are, but he wanted to be here for the stream today, so they're going to be here as my wingmen to talk about why I love Warframe and why it is interesting, and you might consider checking it out today. We're going to be looking at some of the lore. We're going to be watching some of the beautiful trailers for the game that DE has released for Warframe. We're going to be reviewing some of the primary artwork and visuals of the game. Ginger happens to have several videos of most hilarious bugs, and we will be talking about why the community calls the game Bugframe, because of the hilarious and numerous bugs that some still exist in the game today. Also, you guys know that I love my aesthetics. And one of the main reasons I love Warframe is because of the literal millions of visual, cosmetic, and fashion combinations you can create in the game. And both Ginger and myself, and perhaps even 3 of 12, for the first time ever on my channel, we will be live streaming a video game. We're going to show you some of the amazing and unique visuals that you can create inside the game of Warframe. And years ago, I fell in love with this because I can use it as a visual medium to create all different kinds of characters, character visuals, weapon combinations. Because my mind, when I was younger, I used to love to just sketch out doodles of different fantasy and science fiction characters just to help my mind sort of walk through what all that I could create in fantasy fiction. And Warframe is a good medium for that. It's an artistic medium I get to play around in on my own. So all of these things and perhaps some more we'll be talking about over the next couple of hours. If that sounds like your cup of tea, pull up a chair, plug yourself in, get relaxed, and hopefully have a good stream with my friends and I. And speaking of them, here they are now. We have Ginger Monster and 3 of 12. Welcome, my friends.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Oh boy.
I hear
What
some
noise coming
background noise from someone. Who's that coming from here?
Might be me because my fans are gone.
Yeah, it sounds like you're
definitely
you're sitting on top of a jet turbine.
I kind of am.
All
I
right.
have a
Well,
big blower
that's
GPU.
good. Well, regardless, welcome to the stream, friends. How are you two doing today?
Good, good. As you know, just prior to the stream, I was playing around with one of the weapons that I've recently finished building out on Warframe, and oh no, that's a lot of bullets.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just realized I forgot something. Give me just a second. I always like to start off the stream by thanking the people who financially support. These fine folks support me monthly on Subscribestar. I deeply appreciate those of you. Even if you just support the stream for $1 or support my channel for $1 a month, I would deeply appreciate that. I'm going to put the link in the chats. You can find the link in the description of the videos if you would like to financially support me each month, like these fine folks here do every month. And during the course of the stream, if you have questions about Warframe or things you want to share or ideas that you have, I would appreciate you doing so in the form of a paid chat. You can do it on Entropy. I appreciate that. That's the pinned comment on YouTube, or at least it should be. No, it's not. I'll put that as a pinned comment. You can also send short messages on PayPal and Cash App, and you can send paid rumbles on Rumble and Hyperchats over on Odyssey. Thank you. It means so much. Now, without further ado, why did I want to talk about Warframe today? Now, that is a complex question that will come in a series of complex answers. But the video and the song that I shared at the beginning is part of it. Digital Extremes has created a unique gaming world based on not a story per se, but a hodgepodge collection of story parts. It is an emotional story loaf of fantasy, science fiction, and the hardships and darknesses of what it would be like to live in a soulless, post-truth, post-religious universe. And it is a beautiful combination, a meatloaf, let's say, of tropes, ideas, and emotions that really call to me. So that is not what Warframe is as a game, however. That's what Warframe is sort of as a theme and an experience. But that's only part of it. So Ginger and 3 of 12 have joined me today because we're going to be talking about different pieces of this impressive video game meatloaf together. And the intro song was to sort of set the tone. Ginger, 3 of 12, before we get started here, tell me how long you've been playing Warframe and what you like the most about it before we get rolling any further here. We'll start with 3 of 12.
Well, I started playing in holiday of 2014 on the PS4 because I didn't really have a high-end PC at the time. It was something I was still working on. But, I really enjoyed it. And back then there wasn't a ton of content. I could just run missions with people even though I didn't know what the heck I was doing or where I was or what was happening most of the time. I mean, I'm citing like the first 100 days of Warframe for my experience. If you've ever seen that video on YouTube.
Yes, I have. It is funny.
But yeah, after that,
sorry, carry on.
Yeah, after that, I got more regular, and then I started playing on PC. And there's a buddy that I played with for a while on and off. And really, I just kind of use it to relax once in a while. It's taken a long time for the lore to get where it is, and also for the company to kind of get where it is now, because it had some dark times in the past.
It certainly did.
You can go ahead.
Ginger, let's move over to you then now. Tell me, same question to you. When did you start Warframe, and what makes you love it and stick with it after all these years?
Well, I always struggle to try and figure out when I actually started playing, but there is one key thing that I always remember when I first played, and that was I started playing right on the release of the Warframe Valkyria. And according to the publicly ran wiki, which, by the way, is one of the greatest fan information collection websites in all of gaming history, apparently I started playing in late 2013. So, surprisingly enough,
around the same time 3 of 12 did. And yet, despite that, I would say it's safe to say that I probably have somewhere in the realm of 10 times as many hours in this game as he does. Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a filthy casual.
So after all these years, what makes you love the game and view it as unique, and what's kept you playing all this time?
Oh, for me, the thing that keeps me playing year after year is just the simple fact that when it comes to Warframe, you're never finished. There is always something new to either refine or really dig your teeth into in terms of in-game mechanics. There's always new builds that you can come up with. There's an infinite practically
Effectively
infinite
infinite.
number of there's an effectively infinite number of combinations of various aspects of the in-game just features that when combined together can result in some incredible and unforeseen circumstances that if you just keep on mashing bits together and seeing what sticks and seeing what crazy combinations you can come up with on a given day, it's a potentially infinite source of entertainment. Like, there are builds that I have created personally that I have never seen anyone else use except for the people that I have told about those builds.
Yeah.
And these builds are, as Yiz has seen, devastating in their consequences and could very easily be worldwide meta breaking.
Yeah, one of the things I like a lot about Warframe as a gaming experience is so many online games, especially ones designed around playing with others. There's always a meta that you can't stray from, or you're no longer effective, or you're not good enough to compete with others. Warframe, of course, like most games, has some elements of that, but if you know the game and you understand the mechanics and you have the breadth of library choices to build with, that really doesn't apply to Warframe anymore. Now, for newer players, of course, that's not the case. But for those of us that have stuck with it for years, one of the challenges that I like in Warframe is seeing what things that are technically bad or low powered in the mechanics I can turn into something not just viable but very powerful. And I've been doing that for years, and so has Ginger. And that level of technical mechanical autism with the artistic beauty of how weird the game is and how much control you have over all the cosmetics, that just titillates my brain and keeps me engaged year after year like nothing else ever has.
Yeah,
It's really something. It's I would say for me the aspect of Warframe that I can get the most hours out of is very much the same vein as what Years does. Taking aspects of old forgotten pieces of kit that I say kit, but old forgotten pieces of equipment, characters, weapons, various pieces of outlying pieces of utility that normally the vast majority of both new and veteran players would just simply be entirely ignorant of, and just seeing what they can do if pushed in the right directions.
Mm-hmm.
Like taking an old crippled man and just giving him a lot of cocaine and just seeing
okay. I mean that aspect certainly fits with my personality as well. I do a lot of thrifting in real life, so putting together old forgotten pieces of equipment is something I do on the regular. In fact, while I was camping, I found a smartwatch and I fixed it.
Oh wow, that's cool. What kind was it?
It's a first-gen Galaxy Gear.
Oh wow, okay, cool. That's from what, 2018, 2017?
Yes, with a 10 nanometer dual-core CPU.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got it working. That's cool.
Yeah, it's just tips power. This thing works perfectly. In fact, you called me and it picked it up this morning.
Yeah, it answered straight away, and I could hear you clearly after just a moment. It worked great. So,
well done.
speaking of things that work great, one of the things that DE, that's Digital Extremes, the studio that makes Warframe, one of the things they excel at is making memorable, emotional trailers to promote their product. And these trailers are not lies like the trailers for mini games. The trailers that you get from Warframe, they express to you an emotional tone and give to you pieces of a story that your brain sort of has to fill in the gaps for. Now, many people criticize DE for this, but I think it works to their strength because I know what it's like, not from personal experience, but because I've been around video games my whole life. The thing that would be challenging if I worked at a studio to upkeep a public multiplayer online game would be having to constantly retcon to keep a contiguous, cohesive story going after, after financial problems, after having to restructure mechanics in the game, having to cut out entire things to make room for other stuff, having to drop raids, having to add in new kinds of player characters, that kind of thing. So I think that Warframe having a loose, not very well defined, difficult to plot on a single timeline story, if you could even call it a story, it works for its advantage because it's like you're playing a beautiful dream. It's like you play in a world that doesn't have an exactly easy to explain or understand history, and you never really fully understand what's going on. That's both surreal and what it's like to live now in the real world that we live in and experience every day now. With all of the question and all the questions we have about what's going on with power players in the world and never really knowing what's true or what's propaganda and that kind of thing. Warframe to me is a very surreal and also very real experience at the same time. And I really appreciate how DE has made all of that come together and work. What do you two think about what I just shared? Is that just a me thing, or do you feel that at all?
No, I think it's very present. I definitely got like permanent present vibes off of it. Where, I mean, it's basically, in a lot of senses, it's the same game that it was when I started playing in 2014. It's like I've been in a dream for the last decade or so, or permanently drunk, or some combination of all these things, because all these different missions have kind of blurred together. I can go to the same locations that existed a decade ago, and the same enemies will be there. And it's as if nothing changed, and yet there's been so many changes and understanding to the lore and the sort of equipment that you can bring with you. It's almost like Unimatrix Zero with other people entering the dream.
Well, I tell you what,
I can really see that as well.
I was going to say I'd like to hear from Ginger before we move to the next thing. So extrapolate or share what you think about what I just shared there.
Well, the idea that 3 of 12 just touched upon, the idea of being able to take new pieces of content that are new and novel and entirely up to date with the current meta of the game and the current standards of design, and then take them to an old form of the game that uses textures and design logic and gives hints to mechanics that were removed half a decade ago and have since been thoroughly forgotten about, and just being able to see how the new meshes with the old and vice versa, taking things that were originally introduced to the game literally a decade ago and introducing them to the game. Like, for reference, Warframe as a piece of software has been continuously viable from a time so long ago that a person could have been born after the invention of Warframe, have grown up playing it, have developed their entire psyche whilst involved with the game to the point of being able to have developed their own personal identity and ability to comprehend language in the same time that this game has been active.
Yeah, one of the guys that plays with us sometimes, who goes by Duck, he's in high school, and this game entered development when he was 5 years old, and he learned about it in elementary school, and he still plays it today.
Yeah,
and the guy who started
the going for.
Say again, what?
It's absolutely nuts when you think about the time scale that Warframe has been operating over.
Yeah, most games don't last that long. I mean, TF2 is one of the few games that could probably look at and think the same thing about.
And
Mhm.
Warframe doesn't have guilds like some online games. It has warrior clans. It has Tenno clans. And the clan that I'm in, the guy who started the clan that I'm in started it with his father 10 years ago after the game came out, because his dad is around my age. And he's in
Yes.
his, I think he's 20 now or 21. And his dad got him into the game. And all through middle school and high school, him and his dad played together. I played with him and his dad. And they still log into the game sometimes. And even though they sort of moved away from video games to focus on life stuff, they still hop on every once in a while. And it's great because Warframe is a game unlike other MMOs. You don't have to worry about falling behind. You don't really have to worry about missing content, because not only is it easy to get caught up, it's always there waiting for you with new stuff to explore and new things to wet your whistle and jump back into. And no other online game I've played is like that, not a single one of them. If you fall behind, you're kind of forever gimped on what you can do and what you can be a part of.
Let's compare what you just said to another similar experience in gaming, Destiny 2. They are both
Oh, dear.
sci-fi. They are both sci-fi MMO style shooters in which the game is intended to take the player through a progression style of gameplay, where you start off weak, but you gradually become stronger and stronger as time progresses. A key difference between Destiny 2 and Warframe is that over the course of Destiny 2's progression, usually they update their game in cycles, and there's 2 to 4 of these cycles every year. And this game has been going for quite a long time as well. About, as far as I'm aware, about 5 or 6 years right now. More if you count the original Destiny. However, a key difference between Warframe and Destiny is that they sunset their content on a regular basis. Whenever they bring out something new, it is available for the next year to 2 years. And then after that, pretty much the entirety of that aspect of the game that was introduced is removed.
Mhm.
And if you're a new player, it's like being introduced to a universe in which part of that universe's history simply doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You are incapable of being able to interact with that storyline. Those are events that happened in the far past, and you are incapable of having any level of interaction with them outside of simply reading or watching poorly documented evidence that this thing happened. Whereas in Warframe, 90% of the time, whilst there is small aspects to the game that once existed but now no longer do, like certain short-term events, you don't get like entire weapons that are now no longer available. You don't get entire mission types that are no longer available. Entire arcing storylines that simply do no longer exist.
Yeah.
Instead, it is all there. If you get started on Warframe, about 90% of all the content ever available to everyone who has ever played Warframe is available to somebody who would pick up the game and start it today.
Yeah, it's wonderful in that regard. So moving into the next thing now, because I don't want this stream to last all day, it easily could. But I want us to take a look at 3 of my favorite sample trailers that I like to show people to let them know the feeling and the tone and the interesting weirdness of Warframe. So let me go ahead and start with this one here. Give me just a moment to share it. There we go. We're going to start with Veilbreaker. So we're going to start with this one. And it's all these trailers are very short, so don't worry. It's not going to take all day. But for those of you that are out there and don't know a lot about Warframe, let me entice you with these 3 short trailers. They're only each about a minute to a minute and a half long.
Before you get started, Jez, a point about these trailers. Under normal circumstances, a game trailer will show you things that they originally intended to introduce, but then end up only ever introducing it in a half-baked format. That isn't the case with Warframe. Usually, the trailers undersell it.
Yeah.
Just bear that in mind going forward.
Yeah. Quickly before we get started, we have a very kind donation from Mrs. Jess Horst over on Entropy for $15 US. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jess. She says, "Hail, sister, no white guilt, Keep it Promethean, and she sends me 3 little white hearts. Thank you so much, sister. I do appreciate the love and the support. You've financially supported me a long time. I deeply appreciate that. I hope you and your 10 kids, I think, 9 sons and a daughter, 8 sons and a daughter, maybe 9 kids. I can never remember how many you have, but you're a real champion of a mother, and I do appreciate you supporting me. She's a friend of mine. She's my age, by the way, so we're of that same age group, and we chat on text sometimes. She's a good lady. But I hope that you and yours are enjoying this. Maybe you have a kid or two that would be enticed by this interesting game. And you'll be glad to know there's not really any white erasure or anti-whiteism in the game that I can find. The game is predominantly mostly white people, but they don't really address race at all. It never really comes up. So it doesn't have, what I can tell, any negative anti-male or anti-white themes in it. I haven't detected that in the many years I've played it. So at least that's pretty good for modern games. That's pretty good. So let's go ahead and get into this trailer here.
Call, not afraid.
Now, for those of you that haven't played Warframe, you might be asking yourself, what the hell was any of that? Well,
yeah, that's a big what the fuck moment right there.
And the reason why I wanted to start with that trailer is it shows different creatures, different entities, different factions. And this is the beauty of Warframe to me, is all of that stuff that you saw in that trailer. You can interact with, play as, combat, and go and look at or talk to everything you saw in that trailer. And it all happens in the game while you play. And the beat up soldier looking guy, his name is Call, and he is part of the Grineer faction, which we'll talk about later. And the weird demon looking thing, he is an offshoot evil sentient by the name of Pazul. They even gave him a demon sounding name. That entity is a main bad guy that you can face off against and fight his minions and such in the game. The weird snake-headed evil looking thing is a perverted, corrupted Warframe that is under the control and in service to Pazul. And that isn't an Archon. And you can go on an Archon hunt each week and try to track them down. And that's one of the Archons you can get to. The Warframes that you saw fighting the Archon, the snake-headed thing, those are different Warframes that you can play as. And they're all carrying weapons that you can use. And the sentiment, the emotions that you saw in that, those are the same sentiments and emotions of the quest line through the new war. So, or through the Veilbreaker update after the new war. So this is why I love Warframe, is you can see a trailer like this and it entices you because you know this is not just putting on airs. This is not just trying to sell you on a new expansion or a new kind of quest you can do that's just the same old, same old. I really like this about DE. And I chose 3 trailers today that are very different, but all are still the same thing of what we just went over. Of it shows you the new and interesting things that you will be getting to play against, and to engage with in the world. So the next trailer that we have up here is from Angels of Zariman. Possibly my favorite trailer they've ever released. But we're going to move to Angels of Zariman now. And I know that I'm not stopping to talk too much for each of these because I want to get through all 3 of them before we kibitz a little bit more. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and pull up. Here we go. Let's embiggen. Uh-oh, I reversed embiggened on accident. There we go. Okay.
Oh.
All right, this is the Angels of Zariman. This is probably my favorite expansion to ever come out for Warframe, but here we go.
The Zariman cries out. All the system can hear it sing.
There's nothing left on that wreck but bad memories. But if I can keep it from hurting anyone else, I'll go.
Have you seen where all the other students wandered off to?
This is not the homecoming we would have wished for you. It's over for us. Fight on, and remember who we once were.
I won't let you suffer.
And that, my friends, is probably another WTF am I looking at moment if you're not familiar with Warframe.
Yeah.
Now, about half of that trailer is actual gameplay footage. And that's, to me, what's impressive. Because if you're not a Warframe player and you look at that, you're going to think those are pre-rendered combat scenes. But no, about half of that is what it's actually like to play the game. And especially the Angels of Zariman content. The 10-0 is that spaceship you saw stuck in a cosmic void warp there at the beginning. And the Angels of Zariman content is about exploring that ship, which is stuck in a weird microcosm of space-time, both real and not real. And you have to fight angels and ghosts and things that are reflections and projections of people's emotions, dead people, people that haven't existed yet, or creatures and entities that are reflections from other realities. And it ties into some of the back lore and the deep story of the game, which I won't go into for the moment. But that is a beautiful trailer. And as you can see, it's nothing at all like the previous trailer we watched. And third in my list to watch, and then we'll be done and talk about it, is the Deviri Paradox. This is the new one that just came out. The new thing, the new big talk of the town in the Warframe stuff. And we're going to watch the trailer for this. And I hope that it'll blow you away like it blew me away. I want you to just drink this in. Now, this one's 3 minutes long, so it's a bit long in the tooth, but enjoy.
Begin again.
Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, and entertainment. How many times will one dissenter die before accepting their fate? I ask you once more. How many times will one fool die? How much will one proud human soul suffer? Before bending a knee to the greatness of their eternal king. Citizens of Deviri, it is a well-known fact to each and every one of us, yes, that the unbent knee must be broken.
Begin.
And there it is. That is the trailer for what just came out in Warframe. And now you're asking yourself, well, Yiz, that doesn't look anything like the other two things you showed. And that's true, it doesn't. And the gameplay, the new Deviri Expanse, or the Deviri Paradox, all of that you saw in that trailer, those are places you can go, things you can do. You can fly your magical, mechanical, undead horse. You can go through the weird, macabre puppet dream world of all those characters you saw. You can fight and explode the big mechanical sky worm. And you can try to save... Well, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but this trailer is what just came out, and it's the thing that we've been playing the last few weeks. And there you have it. So those are my favorite game trailers of the entire Warframe universe there that I shared with you today. So now that we have that out of the way, Ginger, 3 of 12. Let's talk about this. The experience of playing Warframe is a very heady experience if you care about the lore and if you like to ride the emotions of a weird universe. So, of those 3 trailers, which calls the most to you, and extrapolate on it?
Oh, for me, that's absolutely the third, because I've always wanted to know more about the Orokin. I want to know more about their civilization, how they lived, their cultural metas.
That's not Orokin.
It's not, because
It's not.
One thing I noticed about them is, 1, that they wear a lot of gold, and that 2, the skin was sort of a corroded copper color.
Well, if you allow me some spoilers, I could explain why you're kind of right, but also wrong. Would you guys mind? Is that okay?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
What you see in the Deviri experience is a microcosm of one person's mind that was born from a tormented child. But this child was from a parallel universe to something long ago in the final days of the Orokin. So what you're seeing is basically a recreated dreamscape of things that a tormented child's mind would remember from back then. So none of it's exactly real, but it's all real when you play it. And it changes based upon mood and emotion. So think about how in real life you have weather, you have a day and a night cycle, you have 4 seasons a year. Well, in the Deviri paradox, the mood changes every hour or two, from joy to anger to rage to sorrow. And when that happens, the game world is different colors, different enemy arrangements, different tasks to accomplish, different NPCs with different dialogue to talk to. It's very heady and interesting. And when you do the quest line for it, it shows you that all of that is because of one person being stuck in sort of this endless paradox loop of their own microcosm of memories and tormented emotional experiences.
it's worth pointing out as well, on top of all of this, that the reason why this whole region, this whole separate reality exists, is simply because there is this single entity that the Warframe community has affectionately come to know as Manny. And
The man in the wall.
yep, Manny has decided, because he is, for all intents and purposes, the closest thing that this universe has to a godlike entity, he has decided that this tormented child's wildest, nightmarish imaginations would make for an interesting parallel reality to explore. So he just plucked this child out of wherever twisted timeline he happened to find himself in, placed him down into his own reality, and said, all of your dreams get to come true, and all of the nightmares come true too. Have fun. And left him there for years. That is Deviri.
And that's the Deviri experience. Yep. And one of the things that was not showcased in the trailer is you can share your quote unquote Deviri dream experience with others, and you can play on an endless roguelike experience where you and your friends jump into the Deviri experience, and you start off in the Peace Cave in a peaceful place that is always stable. And the game randomizes a bunch of weapons and warframes and special abilities and stuff that you get to pick from, and you hodgepodge assemble a warframe, and you get to fiddle around with the powers and the mods and the different mechanics elements of the warframes and the weapons that you can use for the run. And then you and your friends have a roguelike experience doing a bunch of random missions and doing random crap in the Deviri experience. And when you're done and log out, it's never going to be the same again, because when you go back in, you get a fresh assortment of crap and you do a different assortment of things the next time. So that is really interesting to me as a veteran player, because it gives me something new and a roguelike experience that I can do with my friends that's always different, and it challenges our minds and our skills to use a very unorthodox, randomly generated collection of powers, abilities, and stuff. And we have to talk to each other on voice to say, okay, well, I have this thing available. Okay, well, I have this thing available. How can we make that synergize together? And it's just a lot of fun. I really like that about the Deviri experience.
A lot of the times when Yez and I are going into the highest tier of gameplay on this, what we'll do is we'll go into such a run and we'll see what particularly advantageous pieces of gear that we have. Like, say one of us has a selection of warframes and weapons that offer a relatively low damage but excellent CC potential. It's crowd control for the uninitiated. We'll be able to use that in conjunction with a piece of gear that the other person might be able to get that is very efficient at dealing very large amounts of damage to small, tightly clustered groups of enemies. And in doing so, the pair of us will be able to utilize that equipment synergy to be able to vastly improve the amount of performance that we're able to get out of either person's kit individually.
Yeah, individually we would be not very effective, but working in tandem, working intelligently together with the tools available, you can actually become quite potent and accomplish the challenges. So that's really enticing to me, because I have never played an online game that can successfully deliver on that format, especially one so well polished and beautiful as Warframe.
To answer Victorian's question in the chat there, it's not procedural generation to an extent. There are certain aspects of the game which do utilize procedural generation, but it's procedural generation in the sense that it takes assets from a short library and then uses that in order to create basically predefined structures of gameplay. It's not entirely random. It's random, but taking from a already confirmed to be effective library of assets.
Yeah, let me explain it to you more technically here. The tile sets that Warframe uses, like other games in the past that have used tile sets for random generation, it's not truly procedurally generated like an old MUD or a true roguelike. But every zone, every world, and every piece, and sometimes pieces of worlds have different tile sets. And based upon the mission type, what the goal is, or if you're doing a quest line there, these tiles will be arranged in a random assortment of ways that the tiles can fit together. Because these are not flat maps. These are three-dimensional things you can go into. Ships that are fully three-dimensional where you go up and down different decks and explore things. Big open world areas where you can fly up into the air and access things, or go underground or go underwater. And different tile sets can only connect in certain ways, like at elevators or through certain doors. And within each tile, there are also randomizations. Like in some tiles, doors to certain cabinets or stairwells will be closed and sealed, and you either can't open them at all, you can blow them open, you can hack them open by hacking, or you can do other things to open them, like maybe you're on a time limit or something. So these parameters change within a tile itself, or like a room or a forest or whatever. That doesn't change much itself, but the interactable elements within it and the pathways into and out of it do change. And these things are shuffled together like building a deck for Magic the Gathering, where you can never have more than 4 of one card. You have to have certain parameters like creatures and that kind of thing. But they're always shuffled together and deal out in a different assortment. And that's how the tile sets are for all of Warframe. And I think there's like 38 or 40 tile sets in the normal star chart, not counting the unique ones like Zeraman and the new Deviri Expanse or Deviri Experience. So it is roguelike in a way, because even though you're doing the same type of like between 20 and 25 mission types, the goals and how you achieve those mission types, while always the same, because of random enemy generation, random placement, random time limits based upon what you're doing with who and on what difficulty, it is a much more roguelike experience than any other online game that I've come across. And the reason why it's not truly procedurally generated is I don't think that that's possible on a technical level with this high end of conceptual visual art and high fidelity. I just don't know if it would be possible to deliver on that and the game mechanics still work as smoothly as they do. So that's why it's not truly procedurally generated.
If it was truly procedurally generated with the current level of polish that is applied to the game, basically you would spend half an hour loading up each level, and as a result, it would just
be untenable to play.
Yeah, it just wouldn't be available. It wouldn't be possible.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
This game is designed in such a way that you don't go into a given level and then spend hours upon hours working on this one location. You can do that if you have particular types of gear, and that is specifically what you want to do, but there isn't really much incentive there in terms of rewards. The ideal gameplay loop that the game developers design towards is you go into a mission, you go through that mission in a fairly timely manner, spending anywhere between 1 to 30 minutes in that mission, and you just get through objectives, whether those objectives are wiping out the enemies or just hanging around for a while or finding specific objectives and going through a series of events to complete those objectives. It's objective-based gameplay for the most part. Occasionally, I say, the objective is just go in and do the murder, but sometimes the murder is auxiliary. It's unnecessary. It's optional.
Yeah, sometimes you've got stealth missions. Sometimes you've got breaking and enter type missions. Sometimes you've got a bunch of killing, but it's to protect something else. Like you have to escort people through a dangerous area. You have to defend a target for a while. Like there's all different kinds of missions that are fun to do. And the type of mission you're doing and the type of enemy you're going to be facing forces you to think carefully about the build that you're creating to take on the mission. So that's why you have such a huge arsenal of things to pick from. And speaking of, now we're going. Go ahead. Sorry.
It can make you think, but thinking can be substituted for just raw numbers sometimes.
Oh, of course. I mean, if you just want to go, if you want to create a big devastating AOE build that obliterates everything in a mile radius, then yeah, you can do that. But you don't have to do that. Is my point. Like you can use the tools to create myriad different ways to handle each mission type with different loadouts and different frame powers and that kind of thing. But before we get into that, which that will be the bulk of the stream in the second hour, we'll be looking at Warframe itself, the video game, we'll be talking about the mechanics, etc. But before we do that, just to further wet your whistle, we're going to give a quick look into the different main factions in Warframe, just briefly, the core factions. I only have one picture to share at first for the Ancient Orokin Empire because they're not really a faction. We're going to go ahead and get this little image up on screen. It's not actually people. It's just artwork of the video game. The Orokin Empire, that's Orokin, you can think of them sort of like a mix of god kings, anti-white oligarchs, completely jealous kleptocrats mixed with Emperor Palpatine. The Orokin Empire is what you can imagine that would happen 10 or 20,000 years into real Earth's future if the people with power decided that they needed to destroy God and become God. And you have thousands of powerful psychotic god kings that can live forever and use a mix of psionic magic and technology, basically, to be unkillable, undying god kings. And the entirety of reality is their playpen. And some of them hate each other. Some of them love each other. Some of them treat humans like dogs and ants. Some of them love humans and treat them a little differently. But the ancient Orokin Empire was both a grand, beautiful, and marvelous place and one of the most rotten, evil things you could ever imagine. And you play as a Tenno, which we'll get to later. The thing that you play is long after the death of this horrible, great empire. You are playing in the fractured, broken solar system around Earth, with all the 8 planets and Pluto and the asteroid belt and different things in what this game calls the Origin system. You play thousands of years after the decay of this empire.
Yeah, quick interjection. This isn't post-apocalypse. This is
No.
post-apocalypse. The apocalypse
Yes.
happened a long time ago. We're in the ashes of that apocalypse.
Yes. And there's still millions of lives, probably billions of different souls all across the universe, or all across the solar system. And there are 3 primary factions, and we'll talk about the characters faction that you play in Warframe last. So we're going to go ahead and start next with... Oops, I closed the window when I meant to not do that. Give me just a moment. Because I'm on my gaming laptop right now. I'm not on my work laptop, so things work a little differently here. But let's go. There we go. The first faction we're going to look at are the Corpus. So, Ginger Monster, will you please take a moment and tell the audience who the Corpus are and why the Corpus are, while I go through the different artwork and game models for the Corpus?
Sure. First of all, I'll explain them from a gameplay perspective. So the Corpus are a faction who utilize what is known as Corpus Walkers. They are robotic soldier proxies. They are literally known in the game as proxies. They operate as independent, semi-autonomous androids that take the form of either things that look vaguely like emus or small flying drones, or perhaps little dog-like entities that can just kind of go around and do menial tasks on the ship, but are also armed with laser cannons and the like. Here is an example of what we would refer to as a mower.
And you can have your own custom one as a pet.
Yes, you can. You can get one of these as a pet, and I have one. It's called Bubbles. He makes people fly. It's good fun. The important thing about the Corpus from
I have a cute Moa named Gertrude. She's a shield boosting one.
Yes.
I have one that blows up.
By design, or
yes, by design.
I would argue that's all of them because they're not very good. But go on.
No, they're not very durable. But yes, from a lore perspective, however, the Corpus are very interesting in that they are simultaneously very spiritualistic and also hyper materialistic. They have a literal religion known as well, I don't know if it has a dedicated name, but they worship a false version of the void. The
Yes.
void is this entity that is known in the actual physical properties of the void is that it's kind of like the space between timelines. If you can imagine multiverse theory to be a new universe is born every time a B split decision diverges into one timeline into two timelines, the void is the connecting matrix that allows all of these various universes to interact with one another. The corpus believe that the void is the conduit to wealth, and that by worshipping the void and sacrificing in the name of the void will reward you with additional credits, additional currency.
And
They
also the
will-
good fortune in business and the good fortune in gambling.
Exactly. They have a direct belief that sacrifice to and worship of the void will directly lead to your own personal betterment and enrichment.
material financial gain.
Yes. In addition to this, they have a very dedicated and strongly held belief that the more money you have, the closer to divinity you are. So, in some ways, as the Alabaster has just said in chat, they are somewhat like the Ferengi in that they worship money, but it's less of a bunch of merchants all just kind of loosely conglomerated together, and it's more of religious dogma. Like, these are individuals who will put on suits that are specifically designed to mask their face and their voice so that each individual is indistinguishable from another individual to the extent where they are all identical. And the reason for this is that if each individual is identical, then they in turn end up resembling the infinitely exchangeable units of monetary value. $1 is indistinguishable from another dollar. One corpus worker is indistinguishable from another corpus worker. That level of interchangeability leads them to being resembling the thing that they worship the most, money.
Which is money. Yeah, exactly. So
Money.
we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and wrap up. 3 of 12. Is there anything you want to say about the corpus before we move to the
Yeah.
Grenier?
Yes. What I find interesting about them is their connection to the old world is that they seem to have evolved out of Russian oligarch
Yes, correct.
culture. You can see it in their character set. You can see it that there's some somewhat Orthodox Christianity vibes going on with some of their higher ups. They're a very interesting group of people, and that's what keeps me interested in Warframe is that sort of like the vague collections in the history of these various factions goes back to an old world that we know today.
Yes. And speaking of that, my favorite faction we'll look at next are called the Grenier. They are like Soviet-style Russian for the motherland type of warrior spirit, collectivist-minded people mixed with Klingons, also led by a pair, and well, now one eventually, but led by psycho evil queens that are some of the only, if not the only, true Orokin left in the universe. So we're going to go ahead and move to the Grenier.
Describe them that way. I would
The
describe
origin
them
of communism
differently.
is women.
I would describe the Grenier very differently to that.
Well, then I was describing them aesthetically. Let's actually start talking about what the Grenier actually are. My description of them was only like visually, aesthetically, thematically. They are not that in the game, but let's go ahead and talk about what they are in the game. So, Ginger, go ahead and start talking about the Grenier while I pull up some interesting pictures of them.
Okay, so you should start off by bringing up the picture of the Grenier Queens, as we might as well start from the top.
Oh, sure.
The Grenier are a dedicated hierarchy and monarchy-based system, except instead of it being directly hereditary with power being passed from parent to child, the power is passed from parent to parent via basically the parent, for all intents and purposes, transferring her consciousness from one entity to another in order to achieve pseudo immortality. And in doing so, this is an entity that has ruled over this entire faction for countless centuries. Now, the Grineer themselves do not have the ability to reproduce naturally. And they also do not have the ability to reproduce with other non-Grineer entities. I would say, as a result, this probably makes the Grineer the closest equivalent to a separate species to the other factions within Warframe's universe. Whereas all of the other factions, like members of the Corpus or members of just some random village, they're all humans. You could mash two of them together and get a child. With the Grineer, if you were to take a Grineer individual and try to mash it together with Judy from down the street, no, that would be impossible. You can only produce more Grineer by taking an existing Grineer individual, literally tossing that individual into a cloning vat, which then breaks that individual down into its individual DNA, and then splits that up and creates hundreds, if not thousands, of preferably exact copies, but often imperfect copies of the original clone.
And while Ginger's been talking, I've been showcasing the different Grineer enemies that you can fight in the game. And some of the artwork is really interesting. Not artwork, actually, some of the models are very interesting.
I found the lolly Grineer Queen very funny.
Yeah, she's hilarious.
Something that you'll notice about the Grineer is that there appears to be an aspect of cybernetics to them. They all seem to have implants or mechanical aspects to them. Like this individual here we see currently on the stream is an individual known as Kayla Dathame. Kayla Dathame, as you can see from the eyes, has mechanical eyes. There are implants in the head that help actuate the jaw. There are mechanical aspects of the arms. There's relatively little natural flesh. That is for two reasons. The first is because the Grineer method of reproduction, that is cloning, is done via the rather poor practice of cloning clones. That is to say, they are copies of copies of copies of copies of copies, stretching on back for hundreds, if not thousands of years, to the point where a significant percentage of all produced clones are literally unviable from the very moment that they exit their cloning vat. Like, this individual will come out of the cloning vat and be dead. Yeah. And so as a result, the most viable members of the Grineer are only able to exist because they also happen to have long ago developed technologies that are remnants of the old Orokin Empire that can be used to create technological implants that replace the non-functional aspects of the Grineer. Yeah. Every single Grineer clone is varying levels of biological and technological that are just kind of merged together and recycled endlessly.
Let's talk about another one of my favorite Grineer bad guys, which is this man right here. Who's this guy? Tell us about Vor.
Oh, Vor. Vor is an excellent individual. So
let me try to find a better picture of him. Give me a second. Go ahead.
Vor is a general of the Grineer military. He is a man who has managed to get himself to the point of advancement within the Grineer hierarchy, primarily through being exceptionally cunning by Grineer standards. And by exceptionally cunning, I mean he knows how to make use of simple traps. The Grineer are not an intelligent people, bear that in mind. The majority of them are just about capable of speech. Yeah. And Vor in himself is he has accessed and acquired what is known as an Orokin key. That's
what you see him holding right here in this picture.
Yes, that's his Janus key. Janus key. His Janus key is it's a powerful device that allows anybody who has possession of it to gain limited access to the void itself, that world between worlds I mentioned earlier.
And I'd like to pause you here, Ginger. Pause a moment. I'd like to remind the listener, if you're not familiar with Warframe, every entity, every picture I've shown you, including the 2 Grineer Queens. These are entities you can talk to in-game, you can find in-game, you can fight your way into their fortress, you can encounter them in missions. Sometimes, in some cases, you could even work for them, doing missions for them. So everything we're showing you, this is not just stuff that you see in trailers or hear about in quests. These are people that you can actually be under the employ of, fight in quests, fight in regular missions, or just encounter randomly in the game.
Yeah, usually you are not fighting them directly. You are fighting their mercenaries. You are fighting
Right.
people who work for
Yeah,
them.
but we showed pictures of regular enemies too. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but this individual here, Vor, yes, this is such an individual that if you wanted to, you can work towards eventually getting to the point where you can just walk up to him and quite literally cut him in half.
Yes.
Like, separate his legs from his shoulders with an air gap. Multiple times, if you so wish. Because as a Grineer clone, it is canonically viable in-universe that there are multiple examples of Captain Vor available for you to be able to just murder at your leisure. Whenever one of them dies, they just get another one out.
And Vor also, because of his void powers and the Janus key, he is kind of like reached some kind of weird unkillable state, and he sort of lives in stuck in the half in the void. So you can go kill him and he doesn't care. He'll just come back and taunt you later.
Yeah. Like that is a version of Vor which has effectively been the case that one of his clones got too entangled into the Janus key, and as a result, that entity that I mentioned a little while ago, the man in the wall, kind of got his hands on Vor's essence, twisted that into what is known as corrupted Vor. Corrupted Vor is a semi-godlike entity that is able to be eternally born and reborn again via the time manipulating effects of the void. And as a result of this pseudo godlike power, corrupted Vor kind of acts like a prophet in the Islamic sense. And yeah, he kind of knows that he can't die, and so as a result, whenever you kill him, he'll be lying there, he'll be dead on the floor, and he'll just appear on your phone call and basically start preaching at you saying, "Ha ha, they killed me, yet I live. Ha ha."
Yeah.
And it's
funny. He's one of the only bad guys in a video game where most of his dialogue comes to you after you kill him.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny because that's not usually the case in video games.
when Yiz says that most of his dialogue comes to you after you kill him, I wish he was joking. I really do.
No, but it's true though, because when you encounter
but in a
him,
weird way, it's technically also before because he's not dead yet because you haven't killed him.
No, he's dead. He's just not dead yet.
Yeah,
right. It's time travel nonsense.
Yeah. It's particularly funny as well because whenever you kill him, he'll usually repay you the favor by just preaching at you for like a solid minute. And on some game modes, you can just like leave halfway through his sermon and it's perfectly fine. But on other game modes, he has to finish what he's saying before he will let you move on. And you don't have a choice in the matter. You have to listen to Vor talk about how he is not dead and he will come back.
Yeah. You get to hear him rant about him being timeless and all-knowing and just psycho. So now listeners here who are not familiar with Warframe might be thinking to themselves, yes, you guys have been talking for an hour. I don't even know what the hell a Warframe is yet. Well, just hold on. We're getting there, but this is a complex world. So before we get to Warframes, we have to cover something else necessary. And there's a reason to my madness. There's a method here. There's a reason why I've been walking through the factions in this order. The third and final faction we're going to talk about in the game will lead us into what Warframes are and what the Tenno operators are, which is the Infested. So, 3 of 12. Do you want to take this one? Do you want it to tell us what the Infested are? Okay.
The Infested are a hive mind, part hive mind, part infection, part... Well, It's very much relates to something that's happened very recently in our world. They are a controlled disease that was meant to wipe out the Tenno, if I recall correctly.
No,
Not quite.
meant
Not
to wipe
quite,
out the
but-
sentience, but we'll get there.
Oh, meant to wipe out the sentience, which we will definitely get to the sentience, I'm sure, right?
Oh yes.
They're important
We
enough.
will.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Well, they're very important to the downfall of the Orokin, in
Yes.
that they got out of control and just started wiping out everything.
You
So-
can basically think of the infested like a powerful super AIDS super cancer that replicates like nanomachine replicators from science fiction and can interface with basically any kind of organic matter in the universe and make something violent and rapaciously murderous out of it.
Yeah,
Yes,
they quite resemble the Flood in some sense, because they can
Yes.
turn the matter into functional brutes and various mutated beings that
And so
that have very different damage and properties in how they fight than what the original like enemy would do, like exploding, or for example with Grenier soldiers, they become these four-legged beasts. And they can even infect starships. They can infect all sorts of things, anything that's even vaguely organic, considering the Grenier have a mesh of it in all their stuff.
And also the infested, it can also create nodes of thinking. When enough of the when the infested collects enough neurological matter, nerve cells, brains, it can form these hive nodes that are smart enough to understand and intuit machine language. So when you get enough infested infecting a ship, it can actually start taking control of computer equipment, electronics, robots, even star travel. So it's a severe problem, and this is what the Orokin Empire fell to. This was the apocalypse that destroyed the Orokin Empire, was a mega weapon of their own design.
That's not quite right, actually. The thing that brought the downfall of the Orokin was definitely the Tenno.
Well, okay, fair enough, but this was a major problem that was rampant in the end of the Orokin Empire, was the infested.
Yeah, they did happen concurrently.
The infested happened towards the end of the Orokin Empire, but they were originally developed directly as a countermeasure to the sentience. The sentience being something that we'll get to later on, but which I will for now describe as out of control AI.
Here's a screenshot of an infested controlled spaceship.
Yes. So basically, the best way to think about the infested is that they were developed with the intention of utilizing the natural tendency for biology to achieve survival of the fittest, evolving to fit a given scenario in the best way possible via evolution, rapid evolution on the scale of achieving millions of years of evolution within a week. That tier of evolution, that's what the infested are. And the reason they did this is because the sentients had the ability to adapt themselves via the use of just simply modifying their own form to adapt to whatever form you were trying to use to exterminate them. It was kind of that they basically, what the Orokin did is they made the sentients got out of control. So then they made the infested, and then the infested were intended to be able to kill the sentients. But because the infested are biological, you can kill biological. So they always had that backup plan in their back pocket to be able to just say, right, infested are getting out of control, purge, and then that's it. That was the Orokin's plan. But then the Tenno killed all the Orokin, and so now the infested are a bioweapon that has the potential to infinitely adapt to any situation in order to become an unstoppable force that everybody lost the off switch to. Nobody knows how to turn off the infested anymore. So it's just a gradually scaling problem.
So now we start getting into the small factions, the things that you don't really fight much of, or the things that aren't major enemy factions in the game. And we need to talk about what the sentients are, because the sentients tie directly into why the Tenno exist, which we'll get to soon, why there are warframes. and why we have the expansions we've had for the last 4 years. So the sentients, I'll go ahead and take this one. The sentients are a creation of the Orokin Empire. Actually, I would like to read to you from the Warframe Wikipedia, actually, because I forgot to showcase that. I was going to showcase that earlier.
I did mention the Warframe wiki earlier. It's most games have a wiki of some kind. The Warframe wiki takes the concept of collecting all of the information that is available about a given subject and does it to its logical conclusion. Practically every scrap of information that you could ever hope for about Warframe exists on the wiki, to the point where there are topics about things that haven't even existed in the game for years that have so much documentation on them on this that it would make a historian blush.
Yeah. The sentients are an artificial species created. Well, it says they're from the Tau system, but they were created by the Orokin during the Old War. And originally, they were suspected to be a hostile alien species, but that's not the case, as we've learned as the story has unfolded. And well, actually, this is actually not what I need to read.
No,
here we go.
You've misread that. Yes, they were created to initiate the colonization of the Tau system. The Tau system being another solar system, but they were the chief antagonist of the Old War, which was a war between the Orokin and the Sentients.
Correct. That is correct. So, actually, this is way too long to read. I didn't know how long this was. My God. Yeah, the Warframe wiki is nuts. I'm gonna put this link into the chat if you guys want to actually go and read this. But it's very interesting. It's just really, really long. So I'm gonna drop that link in the chat.
The primary lore on them is the most important bit. Is that that they were used to colonize the Tau system, and the Sentients eventually developed a resentment for their parents, and they're highly tied into the understanding of the Lotus and some key characters to the downfall of the Orokin. We'll leave that alone because those would be major spoilers.
So take about the next 3 to 5 minutes and tell people the reason, the connection between the Sentients, how we get Tenno, the tie-in to why they're called Tenno because of the Zeraman ship, and then we will walk into what the Warframes are. Does that sound good? And we can tie it all into the infested strains and that kind of thing.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure I can sum that up in a short.
Okay. Well, while you do that, I'm going to show pictures of different Sentients while you're talking.
You're more familiar with the details than I am.
Right. So, the Sentients are self-perpetuating AI robots. They have the ability to reproduce, given access to raw resources, and they are intelligent. To this end, the Orokin designed this with the intention of sending them to the Tau system. They would arrive at the Tau system, which is some undefined other star system that they wanted to expand their empire. And then they just left them there. The idea being that the Sentients would gradually terraform that entire star system into a copy of our own solar system for future use. Eventually, though, the Sentients figured out, wait, why are we doing this for the Orokin? We could make this our own home. We could make this our star system. And then they became resentful of the Orokin, so they went back over to what is now known as the Origin system to wage war against the Sentients. That set off the Old War. The Old War is kind of like a centuries-long war between the Sentients and the Orokin, with the Sentients just constantly sending drones over to the Origin system to invade our space. They were effectively an invading force, and the Orokin were constantly trying to figure out new ways to repel that invading force. One of the first methods that they tried was the use of the Dax soldier, basically space marines with swords. And they were pretty good, but eventually the Sentients adapted to be able to very efficiently kill the Dax soldier. So then they needed something that could effectively fight against the Sentients that wasn't Dax. So they made the Infested. Self-perpetuating and adapting versus self-perpetuating and adapting. Might not win the war, but would certainly set things into a stalemate, give them time to come up with a more effective and permanent solution. That is when they started working on the warframes. The warframes were kind of like the second iteration of the Infested. Instead of evolution running rampant and wild like an uncontrolled fire, this was like taking this aspect of evolution and concentrating it down, whittling it into a fine blade that could be used to cut through the sentience in a controlled fashion. That was what the warframes were. And they were made from the Infested. They were made by taking the original super soldier, the Dax soldier, combining it with the twisting aspect, the biologically twisting aspects of the Infested, in order to create something new, the Warframe. But the Warframes were effectively just dolls. They were effectively just a very powerful, advanced, incredibly violent entity that existed on pure instinct. There was no ability to control these things beyond just simply setting them loose on the sentience.
And now for the viewers, I am showing pictures of warframes now. I'm showing pictures of the things that Ginger's talking about now.
Now, an important thing about the Warframe, this is an entity that has been created by the Infested, taking the naturally occurring ceramics, minerals, and metals that exist within the human form and extracting them out, extruding them into armor plating, rerouting the various natural energies that exist within the human form, melding them with the void, and imbuing these entities with incredible power. Some of these entities are able to defy gravity, as you can see here on the left with the Zephyr Warframe. On the right, you see Limbo. Limbo literally has the ability to create localized pockets of alternate reality in which he has fine control over the flow of time itself in order to be able to dominate his enemies. That sounds a lot more powerful than what it actually is in game, by the way. Limbo is kind of crap.
And on the left, you see Zephyr. Zephyr is a warframe that can fly and has powers of wind and air manipulation. She can cause powerful bursts of air to knock people over. She can conjure up whirlwinds to float enemies up into the air and control them. She can glide and fly through the air effortlessly. She's excellent for using bows and sniper weapons to fly high above enemies and get headshots on them easily. She's also very fast.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, please continue, Ginger.
So yes, these warframes were developed as kind of like the second iteration of the use of the Infested. And they were marvelous entities. However, it was virtually impossible to control them. Pretty much the best that the Orokin could do was take one of these warframes, set them down on a planet, let them loose, and hope that after the warframe had finished its job, it would be weakened to the extent where the Orokin could then come in and finish off the warframe so that the warframe didn't turn around and kill the Orokin in turn. That's how powerful these entities are. They are frightening. They are literal demons given shining golden form.
Yeah, imagine a warframe's power level equal to a level 20 Dungeons and Dragons character that has access to similar levels of 9th level magic, powerful magic items, and or very powerful abilities from X-Men and other comic books. Infinite mind control they never run out of. They can fly forever and shoot lightning bolts and optic blasts that can cut buildings in half. And they're also extremely fast, tough, almost unkillable, and are smarter than people. So warframes are true demons of creations of the Orokin Empire. And as you might imagine, well, go ahead, Ginger. Let's go ahead and walk to what causes the Tenno, and we can go ahead and wrap this up to let people know what they'll actually be playing in the game.
So should I cover the Lotus next, do you think?
Yes, I have a picture of her ready to go. Here we go. I'm going to start with my favorite one, which is this one.
Should I explain all of the information of the Lotus, or should I explain just what people will know of the Lotus when they start.
Yeah, just use the broad strokes and let people know why they're called the 10-0 from the 10-0 and how
Okay.
Valis grabbed them. Like just take a few minutes and let people know the basic history of why we're playing someone called the 10-0 that controls these warframes.
Okay, so the Tenno are a group of children that existed on a colony ship that was intending to fly over to the Tal system after the Sentients had already been there for a while. And the intention there was these were going to be jumping over there via the use of a new, faster-than-light technology that would allow them to arrive there instantaneously rather than having to take however long it would normally take via the older forms of faster-than-light technology that they already had at the time. Limited teleportation is a thing within the Warframe universe, you must understand. To that extent, when they attempted to make this faster-than-light jump, they ended up... something went terribly, terribly wrong. People were exposed to the interdimensional space of the void, and it drove everyone insane apart from the Tenno. The Tenno were the children, and nobody quite understands why the children didn't go insane. But what they do know is that the Tenno were imbued with the natural gift of controlling void energies. The natural gift to control void energies allowed them to be able to have limited powers, like they can temporarily shift themselves out of phase with the rest of reality, and they can inject their consciousness into other entities like warframes, for example. I mentioned earlier that the warframes were basically operating on pure instinct and would just murder until there was nothing left to murder. Well, by taking a Tenno and putting that Tenno into a kind of meditative state, you could have the Tenno then connect to the warframe and pilot it as a remote control kind of scenario, allowing you to have fine control over the hyper murder machine of Megadeth, and yet also be able to have a conversation with it, shake its hand, tell it it did a good job, have a lollipop. And as a result, they effectively took this disaster of a science experiment, the Zariman 10-0 experiment gone terribly wrong, and they were able to take this terrible experiment, salvage the use of the Tenno individuals, these void-touched children, and use them to perfect an existing super weapon in the form of the warframes, the marriage of two weapons into the ultimate perfected killing machine. However, when it comes down to it, the ultimate perfected killing machine was still taking a bunch of traumatized children and telling them to go to war. Not very ethically sound, if you ask me.
No, it's not. And so now that sort of walks you into knowing about the Warframe universe. And I know that we spent like the last 35, 40 minutes talking about this, but to really understand what's going on in the Warframe universe, there's not an easier, faster way to get the job done. Because if you go to a Warframe lore channel and try to learn the lore, it might take you 3 or 4 hours of watching people talk about the different missions and cutscenes and history and stuff to piece together what Ginger and me and 3 and 12 shared with you in the last 30 minutes. So
yeah,
it is not an easy universe to understand. But since we're already an hour and a half in, I'd like the last half hour to just be looking at things and talking about the mechanics and the aesthetics of Warframe, just to further wet people's whistle on the game. So we're going to try something right now I've never done on my channel before. I'm going to fire up a video game and see how shitty the frame rate is when I put it on screen. It might be absolutely disastrous. I don't know. Because remember, I have hillbilly internet here, and my Wi-Fi connection is not the greatest. So give me just a moment to get the game fired up here. Shouldn't take very long. And then hopefully I will be able to pipe it in and put it on screen. All right. It's letting me log in, so hopefully it will work. Okay. Well, I'm not having any connection issues with the game. Now comes the moment of truth to see if it will actually let me show it to you with any sort of frame rate here. So,
good luck. I'll be
all right,
back
here
in
we
just
go.
a moment, by the way.
Okay, sure.
Okey
Those
dokey.
of you that are watching on YouTube, I am going to. I am on a Warframe right now. This is Saren Prime, but we'll get to that in a minute. I am going to walk back through the orbiter ship that you travel around in, and I am going to go to the arsenal. And let me know how shitty the frame rate is. I know it'll be bad, but let me know if it is unwatchably bad. So
It's like 5 FPS.
it's probably only going to be at best 5 or 10 FPS. So,
but if you're just showing off like the arsenal, it's fine.
I'm just going to show off Arsenal, and we're going to talk about the mechanics. So if this is watchable at all, put a 1 in the chat if you're watching right now. Type a 1 if this is at least decent enough to look at and talk about. That's all that we need for now, because I'm not going to be doing gameplay here. We're just going to talk about it and look at it. Okay. Alice says that it is low frame rate but not unwatchable. I'm seeing 3 or 4 1s in the chat. Okay, this is good. This is good. So I can at least talk about it. Excellent. Ginger, are you back yet? No, he's not. Okay.
No.
I'll wait for him to get back. To give a basic rundown to what we're looking at here, we're going to go ahead and start with my operator. Since we just talked about the 10.0 itself. Welcome back. Since we just talked about the 10.0 itself, we're going to walk back to my operator and let you see my 10.0. And we're going to not talk about the drifter, okay, Ginger? We're going to leave all that out today because it's just a confusing mess. So let's just talk about the operator.
Sure.
Now, back here in the vessel that every Warframe player has, did you guys see that little booth open up? See that booth back in the background there? This is where the 10.0 operates from. This is the operator chamber. Think of this like Professor X. Let me move the chat here to clan chat so it'll disappear properly. This is like your Professor X supercomputer psionic projection chamber. And this here is your operator. So here is my 10.0. I made mine look like a pale, undead space child, female, of course. And I decided to make her have sort of otherworldly, spooky-looking appearance. Now, you don't have to do this. You can make your 10.0 look more realistic and lifelike if you like. But since we are playing sort of a timeless, void-touched, undead space child, I wanted mine to look sort of diseased and undead, while also sort of aesthetically appealing at the same time. So we'll go ahead and go to face here. You can add things like earrings. You can add little bips and boops that go on the face. You can add eye accessories of different kinds. You can add crystal shields, things of this nature. Let's see here. You can also add things like interesting crystal masks. You can add head or ear decoration.
If you want, yes, we could switch over to my feed and I could show you a much more conventional looking Void Child.
Well, we can do that, but I want to show my stuff first. It's my stream, so I want to do my stuff first. You can also you can pick from different voices if you want to pick from different voices. Let's see what else. Yeah, you can do heterochromia if you want to have different colored eyes. You can choose the glow color of the eye. You can choose the inner and outer glow color. Let's back up here.
Looks like your operator hasn't slept in a while.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted her to look undead. Your transference suit is the type of suit that you wear. And like with all parts of Warframe, it is highly, highly customizable. So this, you can see, is pretty basic bitch sci-fi looking suit here. But you can wear weirder stuff if you want. Like here's one that I just got recently. Here's the, where is it? I got the Lonely Rider suit. So we can put all of that on. You got the Lonely Rider sleeves. They have little cuffs. Now, I like mine looking very simple and basic because I don't like mine to have a lot of flair. I like it to look all business, all no nonsense. So before we move to Ginger's game, the only weapon that the operator carries is some kind of amplifier, which is a device that they use that helps them channel and focus void energy into an offensive beam or spray. And I have different kinds of them. I have one that's more like a flamethrower that shoots out a void plasma flame jet. This one snaps back under the wrist and only comes out when you use it. It's a widespread beam. So we'll go ahead and move back out of that. Now, before we move to Ginger and talk about his, we're going to walk back through the ship now, and I'm going to showcase for you some of my favorite fashion frames that I've put together.
Fashion frame is a colloquialism among the Warframe community that basically just means I've taken a Warframe and I've made it look as fancy as possible. Yiz is much better at this part of the game than I am.
Well, thank you. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on Fashion Frame, maybe even more than 1,000. Probably more than 1,000. So now that we walked around and looked at stuff, I have not been looking at chat. Yes, I agree with you, Kingdom of Inland. The Grineer do resemble the StarCraft Marines. I can see why you would say that. I definitely agree. Thank you, Simon. It's very kind. So here we have, I'm going to go into the appearance here. You can see how this looks now. Let me show you what it looks like by default so you can have a grasp of how much you can change about your Warframes. This is what this frame looks like by default. Look at this.
It's really quite impressive, isn't it?
Do you see how different this is?
I mean, when this came out in 2014 to mainstream understanding, it was the weirdest game I'd ever seen. The aesthetics were just completely and utterly out there.
I know. It blew me away.
Weird mix of organic and
cyber.
Yeah, cyber forms. Sorry.
So this is my main fashion frame. This is my main fashion frame here for Saren. Okay.
Show them what it looks like when switching between the two different the default look and your custom look from behind.
Okay,
because from behind is an even more dramatic change compared to from the front.
Yeah, so here's from behind. Look how different. See that? And you might even notice that the body posture changes. That's because you can choose different idle animation sets. You can choose from dozens and dozens of different idle animation sets that determine how your Warframe stands, how they interact with weapons and stuff, how they float, how they climb, how they look when they move. But anyway, so this is the default one. This is my primary one. And then I have another fashion frame for Saren, and it's based on butterflies. Check this out.
This one's my favorite of yours, by the way.
Oh, that's very nice.
This one's one of my favorites too. I have an interesting backpack, which is called a Cyandana in this game. And I have a butterfly wing backpack. And I built this one around a beautiful pair of colors, which is lavender and sort of a pistachio periwinkle type of color blend. And this is one of my favorite fashion frames I've ever made. So thank you very much. We're going to look at a few more. We're not going to take too much longer, but I do want to showcase what you can do. Before we look at other Warframes of mine, this is how you build a Warframe. You start with a base, like this. This would be a base, right? And you see how over here all the colors are just an empty checker box. That shows you that you're using the default color pattern. You can choose from different heads. You can choose entire skins. If you want a different base of mesh and texture. Actually, I should go through these slower. Let me back up. I forgot my frame rate is ass. Okay, here is the basic, and I'm going to count to 5 before I move on. You can choose a base skin, which could be the Grax, the Orphid, the basic Saren, the Amalgam skin, the Blade of the Lotus, the Immortal skin, And it just goes on and on from there. And these, of course, some of them cost you real dollars to buy. Some of them cost you premium in-game currency, which doesn't necessarily cost money to buy. You can trade it. You can get it from trading. So this is how the game monetizes itself, is with cosmetics. This game is not pay to win. You can get everything in this game and be the most powerful player in the game and have access to everything and spend $0 on this game. That's another thing I like about it. You don't have to spend any money at all to have everything and do everything. So let's back up.
Something that is worth mentioning on that point. Some of the skins do cost money. Those are from what is known as Tenogen.
Yeah, that's the cash shop on... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
People who play this game have the option to create artwork of their own variety. Yes. They can take models that are provided by the developers of the game and enter them into texture editors and build their own skins, and then present these skins on a dedicated workshop on Steam. When they do this, they are able to effectively produce this content for the game, and other people can then buy these skins if they so choose. And in doing so, the person who made the skin makes a cut of the money from each individual sale. So
yeah, it's pretty cool how they do that.
Say, for example, if there's like a $7 skin, D would get 6 of those dollars, but you would get 1. So you could, if you were able to create such a skin that the community generally agrees is an excellent addition to the game, D implements it into the game, and then 1 million people buy that skin, which is entirely possible, bear in mind, suddenly you have just made $1 million.
Yeah. So, just to quickly let you guys know how it works, you choose primary, secondary, tertiary, and accent color, as well as your emissive color, which is the colors of the little glowing lights on your Warframe, and then energy color, which is what color the energy will be when you use the Warframe's powers. So, whenever you select a color, you select a color palette, and you get a bunch of different palettes to collect in the game. You've got a Tenno palette. You've got a Daybreak palette with different colors of sunshine and daybreak. You have Cherub, which you collect from Valentine's Day. It has a bunch of bold, cutesy Valentine's colors. There's a classic color palette, which is, as you can imagine, just, regular colors. Then there's one for the different factions, like the Corpus. The Corpus have bold, bright colors, dull grays and purples. Dojo, which is the Tenno Dojo colors. They also have bright colors. And it just goes on and on. They have one for Easter, which is all the Easter egg colors, etc., etc. So
my particular favorite, by the way, out of all of the color palettes, is called the Shamrock color palette.
Oh yes, Shamrock. Yes, that's the St. Patrick's Day color palette. Yes. So moving on to make this not take all day, you can include attachments. You have ephemeras, which are, you see how we have these pretty lotus flowers, little lotus flower decals that are cascading down around my Warframe? That's because I am using the lotus ephemera. The lotus ephemera is the one I have equipped, of course, and that's what causes this to happen. You can choose from different kinds that give you different sorts of wings. They give you different auras that radiate out from you. They give you orbitals. They'll give you interesting energy that encases your Warframe, all different kinds of interesting cosmetic options. And you can also choose, you can see this piece of armor on the chest of this Saren right here. This is a Prime Latron chest piece. Now, I can change that to be dozens and dozens of different other armor chest pieces. Like, let's zoom in here so you can see. I can change it to that. I could change it to this. Or this. Or this. Or this. Or even this.
I think that Dex Rexarca chest piece actually looks quite good.
It does. I like it. I like the Dex stuff quite a bit. But anyway, enough of that. You can also choose your backpack, which again is called the Sayandana. I, of course, am using the Sari Sayandana, which is the butterfly one. And of course, again, dozens and dozens of cosmetic options for backpacks. Just all different kinds. I like the energy wings. These are pretty too. The little energy tracer ones from the Arcturus. These are pretty. But anyway, we could do this all day. Let's go ahead and back out of this, and I'll show you just a few of my favorite fashion frames before we look at Ginger's. Nyx is one of...
I don't have anywhere near as many as what Yiz does, so it'll take nowhere near as long.
This is my frightening Halloween alien Nyx. I built her after a mix of Alien from the Aliens movie franchise and one of my Xenomorph characters from a mix of Babylon 5 and 40K style games that I played with my husband years ago. This character, of course, is based on just a bright purple and bright green color palette. But I think she looks really cool. She looks scary. And yes, she does glow in the dark. So these green dots, when you enter into an area of darkness, they glow in the dark and they show up bright green, like Predator blood from the Predator movie. And so that's this is my Nyx. Has a nice living Cyandana, like an infested Cyandana, interesting bat-like wings. So very, very interesting, very dark, sort of sinister looking build there for this. Now let's go to, we're going to go to my Hildren because she is my synthwave frame. This is my synthwave frame. Look at this weird beast. I made her to look like a golem of static electricity energy with beautiful 1980s synthwave colors. And I'm pretty proud of this one. It turned out really nice. And I forgot to do it while we were on Nyx, but we'll do it while we're on this one. Let me show you what this Warframe looks like normally. This is the base for this Warframe. This is what it looks like normally. And this is what I was... So you truly can change dramatically what the Warframes look like. And you have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of building blocks to work with for every Warframe. And you can spend hours and hours fine-tuning and tweaking your cosmetics. And that is what the community calls the true end game of Warframe, which is Fashion Frame. So let me show you one more, and then we'll get out of here. Then we'll look at Ginger's. Let's see. What is another favorite of mine? We already looked at my Saren.
I'm a big fan of your Vault.
Okay, we'll look at my Vault. My Vault is a sentient-themed Warframe. I used sentient pieces to make him look like he was a Warframe heavily synthesized with sentient components and sentient energy. So he has a floating scapula that sort of connect to him with energy on his back. He fumes with powerful cosmic energy of electricity. Obviously, his name is Volt, so he uses electricity powers. This skin that I'm using is a sentient-based Tenogen skin, and it has lots of negative space, and when he turns on, you can see all of that negative space in his legs, chest, and arms is filled with beautiful particle effects of static electricity and lightning energy. And I'm glad you like this one, Ginger. I put a lot of work into this one.
It's very elegant.
Favorites of yours.
Thank you.
It's especially good when it's actually in action as well, running around and using its abilities.
Yeah, I wish I could show that, but my frame rate prevents that, or I would definitely show it to you.
Yeah, the visual spectacle of you firing off your ultimate ability in the group of enemies with that soft purple lightning arcing around looks incredible. But unfortunately, I'm pretty... The stream might actually explode.
The screen might explode in lightning if I do that. So there we go. There we have it. That's my Volt. I will share one more that I'm proud of. And well, actually, before we do that, let me show you what Volt looks like normally. Again, just for a comparison of how much creative control you have. This is what Volt looks like normally. That's what he looks like normally. And this is how much of him I was able to change and create into something else. So this is why when you play Warframe, you can play for every day in a month and play 10 hours a day, and no one that you bump into in game will ever look alike. That's one of the things I always hated about online games is saying, oh, look, I finally got this awesome in-game ship or this awesome in-game armor. But everyone I meet that's the same class as me looks exactly the same because they have the same crap. I hated that about video games online. But in Warframe, you never have to worry about that because everybody looks different no matter what, even if they're using the same equipment. It's awesome. I love that about Warframe. So the last one I'll show you is my Banshee. I'm really proud of... Oh, no, I need to show you my Equinox as well. This is my beautiful Banshee. She dual wields a glaive, which is a throwing weapon in this game, not a halberd. And she uses a precise shot crossbow called the Ballistica. So that's what she uses. And she is built around a sonic theme because Banshee uses sonic energy for her attack and defense. And I really like the way this came together. And again, to let you know, this is what Banshee looks like normally by default. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I need to go to default colors here.
Do you have a config C to go with?
There it is. Let me go to default colors. This is what Banshee looks like by default. You see this?
Yeah.
And this is what I was able to make from that. So again, you can create things that look not at all like the base frame in any way. And you have almost entire artistic control over what you build with each of your war machines. And I think that is just absolutely fantastic. And last but not least, because I'm intersex and I've always felt in between everything, we are going to go to one of my favorite Warframes, Equinox, because she is a female Warframe, but she can take on a high male and a high female aspect. This is her unified aspect here. And she can go to female aspect, which has a beautiful gown, and she uses subtle cold energy and the power of night and darkness to protect and heal her allies while confusing and paralyzing her enemies. Or she can shift into male energy, into male form, and she gets very fast, does bonus damage, deals slash damage in a big area, and causes her enemies to take more damage if she debuffs them. So this is her male aspect if you want to play a male aspected Equinox. And you can shift back and forth between these in gameplay, by the way. The Equinox Warframe is the fusion of the divine feminine and the divine masculine in like classic Hindu spiritual. The Equinox Warframe represents like the old world Indian or Egyptian ancient world divine masculine, divine feminine type of thing. All the Warframes are built around sort of real world mysticism and real world lore. And Equinox I like because she's built around the concept of divine masculine and divine feminine. And she is a synthesis of the two. So this is what she looks like normally. So you can see just how different she looks normally. Oh, wait, no, that's antonym. Never mind, that's antonym. What she looks like normally. This is what she looks like normally. There we go. This is her normal look. And then the different aspects. Here's the male aspect of normal Equinox.
I think it actually captures the masculine a lot better, actually.
It does. But since I'm kind of a feminine, I'm a feminine male. I like sort of the sleek male aspect of the other one. But no, and in her normal build, she has a harder, buff, masculine-looking male part, and the female part is very feminine. It has a down-shaped helmet to look like hair and pigtails. It has this long, flowing gown. It has high heels and hosiery. It's very feminine, and then of course we're back to the hybrid form here. So, and she's got the up horn and the down pigtail thing. It's just a really interesting frame. So, this is my fashion frame version of Equinox. So there we have it. I think I'll go ahead and kill the game now, unless there's anything. I think I've shown enough. We'll go ahead and stop that. I'm going to close the game to not make my machine melt or kill the frame rate. Okay, so that was my walkthrough of showing you what I have built in the game of Warframe. Now, I didn't go into the arcanes or the weapons or the mods because I would rather talk about it while Ginger showcases it after he shows us his fashion frames. So, Ginger, do you have your game fired up already?
I do have my game fired up. Let's see if I can get a screen share to work.
You probably can if it worked for me. Let's see.
Let's see.
You'll just have to click the present or the share button and then select the Warframe window. And I should be able to maximize it and put it on screen.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work well for me right now because it appears I need a new pawn card in my ONT.
Okay, well, we can look at yours another day.
Yeah, it seems like that's the reason why my audio is getting bad when I tried to run other content, because my internet connection gets very unstable.
There we go. We're seeing it, Ginger.
Okay, is it coming through?
Oh yes,
clear.
Similar to mine, it's only coming through at like 5 frames a second. It's really choppy, but that's just how it is when you try to stream, this kind of material through 2 different services over shitty internet. So that we're just going to have to deal with it.
Makes sense.
So, what would you like to show us, and what would you like to talk about to showcase your particular blend of Warframe?
Well, as I said earlier, I don't have anywhere near as many respectable fashion frames to go through as what Yiz does. But we'll start with my favorite. This is Mag. This is a heavily customized variation of the Mag Warframe, and lots of very sleek metallics, brushed aluminium kind of look, with
very pretty.
a fascinating, what I'd like to call cursed fire swirl being projected into that otherwise somewhat fishbowl-like helmet that you see right there.
Yeah, it's really cool the way you built that. I like that. I know the pieces you've used to build it with, and it's a very good job, I can tell, because I have all those pieces as well.
And to give you an idea as to what this Warframe looks by default, if I switch to... Yep, there
wow,
we go.
Look at that.
Yep.
And let's just go ahead and take off the Syndana.
And change it from the Gauss head back to the standard head.
Yes.
I quite like the Gauss head, though.
The Gauss head is good, but go back to the standard so people can see what it looks like by default. There we go. This is what it looks like by default.
Yes, this is a default Mag Prime. And, oh, yeah, she's a bit ugly.
A bit ugly, yes.
Yeah.
But you made something really interesting and beautiful out of it, though.
She's very basic for Warframe standards.
She is. To be fair, she is one of the starter frames. So,
She is. This is actually one of the oldest Warframes in the game, by the way.
Yep.
What you're looking at right now is years old.
Many years old. Now, this is beautiful, what you've done with it. I love this.
I'm a big fan of this. So, the next one that I have to show you is my Ember.
Oh, nice.
This Ember utilizes this is a fairly subtle form of customization. I don't have any additional armor pieces on that wouldn't normally be there, apart from this Syndana here, which I would say looks quite pretty. Lots of angular bits with some nice gold accents. A very subtle effect that you'll notice is that there are various flames, embers, as the name is quite fitting, rising up from around the body. That comes from the
toxic ephemera.
No, this is... Oh, yeah, this is the toxic ephemera. Yeah.
My fashion friend game is strong, Ginger.
Yes, much stronger than mine. But yeah, this is a... apparently, this is supposed to be toxin, which, given the current color scheme, I personally think looks like a slowly rising flame, which is why I use it.
It does look like slowly rising embers off of a fire. It does. That is what it looks like.
So yeah, I'm quite the fan of that. For reference, the base ember looks something like that. Let me just switch to a more default looking skin. Now you can see here that there are some rather raging fires coming off of the helmet there. That is something that is unfortunately exclusive to the base Ember helmet. If I was to switch to the Majesty helmet, which I prefer, the flames sadly disappear. But you can imagine what it would look like if you could have those rising flames on this Majesty helmet. It would look incredible.
It would be cool if they would bring that back, but I think they like having that unique to the core head to give it its own unique flair. No pun intended.
And there are other helmets that sort of replicate it in some sense, if you still want to get the feel, but it's not quite the same.
Oh. That's Ginger's cuckoo clock. That means we've been streaming for 2 hours now. Wow, we made it to the
Yeah.
2-hour mark today. Wow, this has been a good stream.
And if we switch to the next one that I'm fairly proud of, this is my Wisp.
Yeah,
Ooh,
Wisp is a
that's
cool
nice.
frame. Wisp is one of the frames that by default hovers instead of walks because she has no feet, as you see. She is a ghostly frame, a spectral frame. And go ahead and show off your fashion frame and tell us about your about Wisp.
So I prefer to use the Banshee Noble animation set for my Wisp because I just prefer the more dignified stance that she stands with when using this. And on this particular look, I use what's known as the Rapala Sayandana, which is this long, majestic cape that extends out and flows with the wind quite nicely.
And I think it goes perfectly with her because it's sort of tattered at the end, and it looks like she's a ghost or a wraith or something. Like she's long, like she's part of a long dead civilization or something. It gives me good noble undead from a D&D setting vibes.
That is precisely why I use it too. And as is usually the case, if we switch to something else, we'll be able to see the default by comparison.
Yep.
Let me just remove the Sayandana and
the shoulder piece.
Yeah, that's a sigil, I believe.
Oh yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, that's right.
There we go.
So that's the
really-
default. That's the default Wisp right there.
I'm
Yes, this
starting
is
to
the default
realize
Wisp.
something about Fashion Frame is that Fashion Frame actually really does represent the journey from the early game to the end game. I
It
think,
sure
in a
does.
sense.
It sure does.
Because not just because they look different, but because they look more like fleshed out people.
Yeah.
Stock frames have some really strange aesthetics, and the parts that you have access to and the styles you have access to. I mean, look, it looks like she's wearing stockings now. It looks like she's got a cape. She's got an entirely different aesthetic going that looks much more mastered.
Yeah. It looks lived in because you
Wisp,
live in it.
Yeah, and Wisp in her stock outfit, she looks like a wanderer, someone who's lost everything.
Yeah, yeah.
If you just look at the different varieties of helmets as well,
Yeah,
like they
and even
all
that
share
looks a
a
lot-
similar. That all of Wisp's helmets share a fairly similar theme in that there's a hood.
Yeah,
This
The hood-
one in particular is a
She looks like
very
a witch.
popular.
It's like if you want to play Black Mage from Final Fantasy.
yeah, witchy girl.
But my personal favorite is this one because it instead of being a hood, it's more like a wedding veil. Which
Yeah,
find
I
to be
like that.
particularly regal.
Like she's some undead dark bride that got left at the altar and like during a cataclysm or something. Like she was a princess about to be queen, but then something killed her. That kind of thing.
There's also
Oh, that's
definitely some like Islamic wanderer
Yeah,
or jinn
definitely.
aspects to it.
This
Yeah, or
This
Jinn.
one-
this
Yeah.
is a skin that I don't own, but I'm just previewing it here, and I must say this is really quite interesting. It's a completely different look.
I'm getting Jinn from this for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like some ancient Zoroastrian oracle or something.
Yeah. And now if we switch to another one, let's go with my Atlas. This one isn't complete without the right weapons. So let me just. There we are.
There we go.
This-
Look at this beast. Look at this
This
big
is
Death
my-
Knight beast.
This is my Atlas. He is designed around one singular concept. This is who I pick if I want to play Sauron. And I'd say he does a pretty good job of it. This is power incarnate right here. That mace that you see there, you'll notice that it has a slight reddish tinge to it. There's a reason for that. This is the Cyber. That is a mace made out of supercooling coils that are encased in frozen blood.
Yep. So this is
So
a good
this-
like sort of like a Sauron from the Lord of the Rings movies. He looks like a badass, super powerful Death Knight with unbreakable armor and super powerful crushing weapons that can obliterate anything. And that's kind of how he plays.
It is, especially the way I play him in my build.
Yeah, definitely.
When I'm playing this guy, I can walk into a room, cast one ability to literally terrify the entire room, causing them to flee in fear. And then proceed to strike each one individually, if I so choose, or just simply strike them with a special punching maneuver, which hits an enemy so hard that I can punch a man and kill him with such force that his friend in the next room also dies.
Yeah. It's cool. It's
that is the
wild
power
what
of
you can do
Atlas.
with Warframes. They really are like level 20 D&D characters mixed with X-Men from comic books. They're crazy.
And next, oh dear, animation's bugged out a little there. Let me fix that.
There we go.
There we go. Next, I'm going to show you one that I'm particularly proud of. This is, where is he? Let's just use the search function. This is Chroma.
Oh, yes. After this,
I'm
let's move to talking about mechanics. But yeah, let's look at this fashion frame here.
using the same Sandana again, because again, it just looks epic.
It is beautiful.
This Chroma is a kind of like a dragon knight of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
He is unbelievably difficult to kill, and he just walks in and uses either big swords or big guns and just does all the work by hand. And to that end, there's a particular weapon that I like to use with this particular Warframe. It's called the
Show
Zenistar.
it to us.
It's
Oh,
a
yeah,
big
look
sword.
at that. Look at this. For those of you out there that like big, oversized anime weapons, you can get these in Warframe if you like having giant,
yes.
oversized mega weapons.
Look at that thing. It's a slab of steel, and I love it.
Without highlighting your pistol, move back up to the Chroma tab so we can see the idol with it. There we go. Look at that. Just holding that giant sword vertically, ready to drop it on something. It's really badass. I love it.
It especially works because that horn that you see just simply it folds over the shoulder when it's being held in its idle state, which works
cool?
really quite nicely. And a funny little thing that I like to do with this one, I've set a special holster animation for it. So if I mouse over to my pistol here, you'll see where it holsters, and that is on the hip.
Oh goodness!
And it's
look
just
at that.
it's just it sticks out.
Look how big.
You can take out someone's ankles with this thing. It's great.
So, briefly, before we move to the final segment, which is Bug Frame, which we'll talk about in a minute.
My favorite segment. Since
most of you don't need to know about the particulars of mechanics, I want to go ahead and stay in Arsenal here, Ginger, and equip. You've already got a gun and a melee equipped. That's enough. I want to show you guys just how much customization you have, not over the visuals, but over the mechanical performance of what it is you do. If you'll do me a favor, Ginger, click the upgrade tab on Chroma Prime, and let's have a look at him real quick. Each Warframe and every piece of equipment in the game has arcane slots, which are the two things on the right you see there, called Arcane Avenger and Arcane Grace. Some things only have one slot. Some things rarely have zero. But then you have things called mod slots, M-O-D, mod slots. That's the 10 things you see here, these 10 rectangles that have different powers and abilities. Now, to save you all the minutia here, every item, every Warframe, every sword, every gun, they all have base stats and base abilities. Warframes all have a passive ability or two, and they have 4 primary activatable abilities that can be used in conjunctions of ways. And you can use mods to change how fast the Warframe is. You can change what the abilities do. You can change the parameters of health and energy and armor and shields. You can change the basic range of the powers. You can change the duration and the efficiency of powers. You can change your Warframe to perform many different roles in many different ways by simply swapping out all of these things called mods, because they modify the mechanical parameters and the ability parameters of what you can do. Now, if you'll do me a favor, Ginger, go to your pistol, please.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see here, you have an arcane slot over on the right at the top. And again, you have 8 mod slots to change the parameters of a gun. Weapons have range, accuracy, different types of damage. They can deal piercing and slashing damage. Maybe they deal energy damage like electricity. If you want to deal advanced energy damage, you combine the elements. You can combine electricity and toxin damage to create corrosive damage, which melts through the armor of hardened armored targets and is good for destroying the hardened bone carapace of certain kinds of infested. Maybe you know that you're going to be hunting infested, so you want to use corrosive. Maybe you know you're going to be going up against corpus, which are heavily shielded, so you want to go heavy with magnetic damage, gas damage in the old world, or you want to use electricity damage because they also have a lot of robots, and electricity is good versus shields and robots. So you have a lot of different options for how to build the equipment in the game. So not only are there about 100 Warframe choices, counting the prime and non-prime versions of Warframes, but there are, what would you say, how many weapons now? 250, 300 different weapons?
I think the last time I counted, it was approaching 400.
Okay, so you've got hundreds of weapons and around 50 different Warframes, all with an upgraded version. And you also get to choose of dozens of different combinations of how you decide how these weapons and pieces of gear are utilized, depending on what arcanes and what mods you put into them. And then the meta there is determining what weapons, what abilities, and what items you have that can work together in tandem with the powers of the Warframe you have, the abilities that you graft onto them through the ability augment system, which we won't talk about today. So you can create thousands of different combinations of effective combat play with just a single Warframe and the 400 weapons that exist. But when you add in the 50 Warframes and the ability share system that lets you take an ability from one Warframe and put it on another, you have dozens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of different styles of play and combinations of powers and weapons that you can build together. So this game has almost limitless, close to true limitless as possible, of ways for you to build different combinations of powers, weapons, and play styles to tackle the different challenges in the game. So that's all I have to say about the mechanics, because I don't want to get lost in the weeds, because most people listening won't care past that. So is there anything you guys want to say here about the mechanics before we move into the final segment, which is laughing at Bugframe?
There was just one thing that I wanted to say. This is regarding the aesthetics of the game. Not only Warframes can have their aesthetics changed, but so can weapons. This gigantic sword here doesn't usually look like this. Usually, like this little thing here, a Beyblade launcher. But by equipping this skin, it turns it into a giant oversized sword, and
a piece of iron fit for no man to wield.
Exactly. This particular weapon here is a diddy little revolver, but under normal circumstances, it looks something more like this. A big blocky energy pistol.
Mm-hmm.
I could also change it to look like this, a kind of futuristic revolver, or this thing here, which is like a long lever action,
like sniper pistol thing.
Yeah, sniper pistol. That's a good way to describe it. I could even give it an old style kind of SMG, but I personally like to use this revolver skin because this particular gun is a shotgun revolver itself. You can fan the hammer to fire 6 shots in rapid succession, and otherwise it fires relatively slowly and accurately, with firing 30 energy projectiles down range at the same time, effectively turning this thing into a very, very powerful gun indeed. And it just is delightfully out of place that it's in the hands of this giant taloned dragon man. It's far more fitting when used by something a little bit more dainty. Oh my god, what is that sword doing? Well, that's a good segue into Bugframe, I do believe.
I do believe it is. Okay, so go ahead and kill your game there now that you've got a fun animation bug, and we'll go back to normal view. That was the perfect segue. That was the perfect segue into Bugframe. Now, the reason why the community playfully refers to the game itself as bug frame is DE are good sports about bugs. Very oftentimes in DE's history, they have had hilarious game-breaking bugs that let you collect a shit zillion pieces of loot, that let you do enormous amounts of damage to kill everything on a map on accident, or sometimes to fall through the world infinitely and be stuck in an infinite void of fractals and broken graphics. Bug Frame has a long history of both hilarious and infuriating bugs. But DE have always been good sports, and they don't terminate your accounts or punish you for having fun with the bugs while they're around. So the give me just a second here. Ginger has collected a few video clips to showcase some of the most enjoyable or funniest bugs in Bug Frame's history. So the first one we're going to start with is only about a 30-second clip, and it is known as Broken Lights. So while I get that fired up, why don't you tell people about Broken Lights?
Okay, so probably somewhere in the realm of 5 or 6 years ago now, DE decided that they wanted to try playing around with environmental hazards. And what we're about to see here is their first attempt at creating environmental hazards.
Here we go.
They have since iterated on this quite a few times and polished the concept more. But their initial attempts were quite funny indeed.
Oh my god, this takes me back.
Oh my
This
God.
is back when I started. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
I actually never got to see this in the game.
This
I
is
only
from
saw
like
it in
2015, I
pictures.
bet. This is a long time ago.
Oh, it's older than that because I never saw this. This is like beta days.
Our position has
So,
been compromised.
you may be wondering what just happened.
God, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, what happened? Why does he have 0 health?
Why is he dead?
Why does he have 0 health? And why did the game
So-
bug out as soon as he loaded in? Why did that happen?
So what just happened
Jesus.
there was, as he was loading into the mission during that animation, you saw as that little landing craft was swooping into the giant Grenier galleon in order to be able to infiltrate and begin the mission. During that animation, the game was loading the mission's level itself, and in doing so, placing your warframe at the starting point. However, that starting point just so happened to be within the activation range of a broken light. This broken light specifically activated because he was in the activation range, causing his warframe to be immediately electrocuted by the broken light. Now, normally, you can negate that damage by rolling through it in order to evade most of the damage. But unfortunately, he couldn't do that because he was stuck in the loading in animation. So instead, he started the game dead.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Hilarious.
But he could still walk around though, which was hilarious. All right.
No, that was his friend.
That was someone else.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, he just spawned where the broken light was shooting, electricity. So, yeah, just killed him.
Well, next we have something extra hilarious. It is about crashing, because DE's netcode has been notoriously broken for a long time. It's much better now, of course, but this is a video of someone that tanks their game so hard that they lock up and destroy other people's games too.
Yes.
For those who don't know about netcode, because MMOs have to run in real time and send data back to a server constantly in real time, it actually significantly harms the performance on the local end.
Oh, definitely.
It limits.
So here
what
we
you
go.
can do in real time.
Oh, sorry, 3. Sorry. Go ahead.
What? It's not just lag. It's literally the fact that your CPU can't do anything while it's waiting for new data. So you end up wasting quite a lot of performance just due to netcode.
I can't tell you how useless you are.
And I have
look! Oh!
crash. No. Dab.
Oh.
Dab.
I didn't even know it was on Xbox 360.
Don't leave
There
us.
we go.
Yeah, you can play it on 360 and PlayStation and
My game
Oh,
crashed.
no.
It was placing on Nintendo
Oh
Switch.
my god!
Did I crash you?
Yeah.
Milani,
We gotta
what
get
crash?
that quiet.
No, Sab.
Okay, I won't press the 4 key unless I really need to.
Thank you. I'll carry you, just don't do anything.
Are you sure?
Watch this.
Please.
Okay, fine, carry me.
I swear to God, if you isekai my game somehow.
They didn't really do anything to his 4. Defense, I went goblin mode. I have a power strength buff.
No.
Yeah, do it.
Oh,
Do
no.
it. Crash the game.
I'm gonna do it.
Do it. Here we go.
Oh Jesus! I was fucking hack faster until leave.
There is no escape.
My game has been crashed properly in such a long time. I can't do anything. Hello?
I'm back. Hi.
Okay, well, if you couldn't tell what was going on there because it was chaotic and we were laughing, this guy was playing Warframe on Discord with his friends, and what he was doing was taxing the game so much and affecting such a huge area. It was locking up the game and kicking people out of the game that he was playing with, not just him.
No, it wasn't kicking them out. He was causing the other people to crash due to the other people's computers not being able to handle the sheer amount of fuckery going on the screen at that given moment.
Oh, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. So
Yeah, Experience Engine is notoriously fragile when it comes to things like that, whether you have the performance to handle it or not.
This next one is a fun one. DE often has made the mistake of allowing things that should not multiply forever to be able to multiply forever. And this one is Static Discharge. This one is a lot of fun. It's short, but explain how it was supposed to work, but what we got, Ginger.
Okay, so this was supposed to be a special augment that you could apply to what effectively amounted to a stun stick. Under normal circumstances, this stun stick is little more than an electrified club that has a chance to cause the enemy to become paralyzed temporarily when you strike them with it. However, this augment makes it so that when you strike an enemy with a special power attack, not only does it guarantee the stun, but it also causes a small arc of electricity to stun a small number of enemies around you. The mistake that DE did was forgetting to have an expiration timer on that little lightning bolt. To hilarious consequences.
And this is what it looks like when you forget to put a duration on multiplicative special abilities. Watch this. Oh, the frame rate's already tanked. Oh, look at all the static. Oh my
god. It's just
it
happening
just
all
never
at the same
ends.
time.
Look at this.
Great waves of electricity sweep over the
Oh my
enemy.
god.
Oh man, if you're looking for easy experience, there you go.
We got time for one more. Do you want to do Boss Moves Reload? Or do you want to do a different one? You want to do a multi-shot?
Let's see. Let's go with the multi-shot one. That'll be fun.
Okay. All right. We'll do the multi-shot.
I think we should finish it off with the dual Raza Slam Bug.
Okay. All right. We'll do dual Raza Slam Bug then. This will be the last one because we're getting long in the tooth here. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, explain to people what the dual Raza Slam is, and then we'll look at the video.
Okay. So all weapons have a variety of different attacks. This is melee weapons I'm talking about, of course. You can just do a casual, just a normal hit. You just walk up to someone, you swing the weapon. You can do power attacks where you charge up the attack for a bit and then you swing really hard. And you can also do slam attacks. Slam attacks are special in that when you use them, you slam your weapon into the floor with great force. And if you catch an enemy directly with the weapon in the process, it does a lot of damage. But it also causes a radial knockdown effect. What this man did here was he tried to do the slam attack and then get knocked out of the slam attack animation. But he was still in a slam attack. But because he hadn't done the animation to finish it, it never ended. And then the game kind of got stuck.
Check this out.
Ele tá difícil. Usei todos os looks e ainda tô usando a duplicada. Ainda tá difícil.
Here we go. He's about to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Oh, no.
It's a few seconds away.
There. Oh, there it was. He got knocked out of the slam attack. Now watch. Every time he goes to move,
Oh,
he does a
just
mega
constantly
slam.
slamming.
He just constantly slams and knocks everything down and obliterates stuff, and it never ends.
This is why you don't make Tino angry.
They say that to this day he is still slamming the floor in anger.
They say that if you go close to that old infested ship, you can still hear it beating. Thump, thump, thump. That he's stuck in that dual Raza slam animation. It's a curse. Anyway, well, that was a lot of fun. So, for the last 2.5 hours, I hope you have enjoyed listening to me and my friend Spurg about how much we love Warframe, why we love it, why it's unique, and why you might want to check it out. I'm going to make sure we didn't get any community engagement I missed. I would hate to miss a Rumble or a Hyper Chat or something. So let me refresh all the stuff here real quick. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, nothing over there. We'll check PayPal one last time. Sure, not missing anybody. Okay, let's do... Man, PayPal has been slow and terrible lately. Okay, nothing new on Entropy, so I'm closing it down. And no hyper chats and no rumbles. So we are clear and good to go. I hope that everybody that was here today, I know there was only like 20 people here today. I know it's sort of a not a big topic, not a mainstream of mine, but I'm really glad that we got to do this together, guys, because I love having I love celebrating things that I think are worthy of celebrating. And I know that DE probably has paused anti-white people that work at it, but at least the product itself is still good. And there's, from what I can tell, very, very little political messaging or anti-male, anti-Western stuff in any of Warframe, except for, let's not talk about Ticker right now, but let's, except for little teeny tiny crumbs of it here and there. Warframe is still mostly a good game that is just a good game. And hasn't been affected by the pause. And on top of that, it has all the wonderful stuff that we just talked about in it. And if any of what we talked about appeals to you today, Warframe is free to try out. It doesn't cost you any money. And the only thing that you have to spend money on is to hurry up build times if you're in a big hurry, which you shouldn't be because it's only like a day to build stuff. And if you want to buy expensive cosmetics. Other than that, you can farm up and trade for anything you want in the game and have a wonderful time experiencing this weird, unique mix of roguelite, looter, shooter, fashion frame, play with each other adventure game. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
It'll run comfortably on 10-year-old systems on the old engine. No problem.
Oh, yeah. Wheezy says that she might get this for somebody. Wheezy, if you have any friends, and this goes the same for anybody out there listening, if you want to get into Warframe, or you have loved ones or children or nieces and nephews and stuff that you want to get into Warframe, the Warframe veterans like me and Ginger and everybody else that I hang out with, we love helping new people get their legs in the game. One of the main things that end-game players like doing is help getting new people involved in the game. All you got to do is reach out to us, me, Ginger, let us know that you got people that are getting into the game and want help or want people to play with, and we will definitely hook them up and help them get resources. We'll help them understand the game. We'll play with them. We'll show them the ropes, that kind of thing. So I hope that you guys had a wonderful time listening to the stream. Ginger, 3 of 12. Any closing thoughts or sentiments you want to say before we say our goodbyes and get out of here?
We all lived in the tomboy mine.
I think I'm going to say that if I ever see you in game and I happen to be playing my mag, I'm sorry.
You gonna make us lag out?
Maybe depends.
You can try.
My mag is my friends don't like it when I play mag because that means they don't get to play.
When I get that new pawn card, I will be invincible.
Well, thank you both for being here today. I hope that the viewers that are listening to this after the stream is over, if you've made it this far, consider subscribing to me monthly. I don't make much money, and I've lost a lot of financial subscribers because of financial hardships going around right now. You can support me for even $1 a month over on Subscribestar. Maybe consider dropping a few bucks on a Rumble or a Hyper Chat or over on Entropy. But please please share this with other people. If you like me, if you like the content I make, the thing you can do to help me most is word of mouth advertising. Share my streams with others. Invite people to come check out my content. Tell them you're going to watch my streams on Monday night, Discordant Dragons, and invite them to come watch it with you, that kind of thing. But just thank you for celebrating fantasy fiction with me. I think that art and expression and fiction, it's important. This kind of thing, cultural expression, cultural artwork, this kind of stuff is really important. And I know that we talk about real life stuff, we talk about serious stuff on my channel, but it's important to embrace art and things like video games and movies and shit. That kind of stuff is important too. That's a big part of our lives right now. And so it's important to celebrate that stuff and talk about the stuff that's good, that's worth sharing with others. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. And I see Alice in chat there saying she might take us up on that. Wonderful. Glad to hear that, Alice. You guys all have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Monday night for more Discordant Dragons. Have a blessed week, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.